and accepting the responsibility to build our communities. Saving Ourselves is presented by the Mid-South representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Student Minister Anthony Muhammad, and the believing community of Muhammad Mosque number 55, located at 873 Vance Avenue here in the city of Memphis. I am your host, Brother Andre Muhammad, along with back in the saddle, my brother and friend, co-host Kenneth X. And today, we're going to continue yesterday, but we got a little new information. Peace in the streets. The ripple is spreading. You can call in to be a part of today's program by dialing 901-452-3094 or 901-324-7490. We are now currently streaming live via YouTube. Just go to YouTube and type in WMQM 1600 AM. And when you enter, you will see the F.W. Roberts broadcasting symbol, and you can log in or tune in, and you can see as well as hear us. I'm going to have to make some adjustments to the screen because I see that thing right there, but we'll take care of that. We'll get that done. But you can catch us via YouTube Live, as I just stated. You can also catch us via the TuneIn Radio application on your smartphone. You just type in the same call letters, WMQM 1600, and when you see the WMQM logo, populate in the search field, click on it, and you can hear us live. You can also catch us the traditional way by just going to your radio at home or in your car and dialing in or tuning in to AM 1600, and you can hear us live. Of course, you won't be able to see us, but you can hear us live. And of course, we got a couple of Facebook feeds going. Brother Kenneth has one going for himself, as well I have one, and we're going to get into it. But let us first begin in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. We don't argue over the names by which God is known. As spiritually mature people, we know and understand that God has made himself known according to the language and culture of the people among whom he's raised his prophets, messengers, and warners. We bear witness to the oneness of those prophets and warners and messengers, and to the oneness of the messages that were revealed through them to the whole of humanity. Brothers and sisters, listening audience, we greet you with the greeting words of peace, of Assalamu alaikum. Those words simply mean, may peace be unto you. As we always do, Brother Kenneth, we're going to move quickly today, because I know we got a lot. Time moves faster than, yeah, let me make sure you give me some.
Can you hear me, brother?
Hit it again.
Can you hear me, brother?
Negative. Okay, now. Speak now.
What about now, brother? Got an echo.
What about, go ahead.
Right now, that's perfect.
Yeah, it is. That's
okay.
That's the man I need to hear. That's the man. We got you now, Chief. We got you in.
Yes, sir.
But yes, as I was stating, as we do, we want to take a break here, and we'll be right back after these commercial messages. What's your source for truth in news reports? Where do you turn for non-corporate driven news that's fair and balanced? Subscribe to the Final Call News, your #1 free and independent news source that delivers hard-hitting national and international news coverage of today's political, economic, and social issues. For weekly home delivery or online digital edition, log on to www.finalcall.com or call us, area code 901-286-5034. Get your locally made, freshly baked supreme bean pies from Bake the Bean Pie. Made from the best of ingredients, experience the golden brown flaky crust and pastry filling of the supreme bean pie from Bake the Bean Pie. Not only delicious, but also nutritious. The supreme bean pie from Bake the Bean Pie. Call in your order today, 901-210-8791. That's 901-210-8791. Bake the Bean Pie. Bake. The Urban Indulgence Bath and Body Boutique. At Urban Indulgence Handmade, we pride ourselves on offering quality skincare at affordable prices. Handmade with plant-based, skin-loving ingredients, our soaps and body butters give you luxurious lather and ultimate moisture. Experience the Urban Indulgence at 3314 Poplar Avenue next to Poplar Plaza. Open Tuesday through Friday, 11 a.m. till 5:30 p.m., Saturdays, 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. And we're back live here in the studio for the S.O.S. radio program. Once again, I am your host, Brother Andre Muhammad, along with my co-host, Brother Kenneth X. Big brother, big brother, big brother from another mother. But hey, listen, man, we're going to get into this today. Once again, dear audience, our topic of discussion, which we started yesterday, and there have been some new developments in Baltimore, Brother Kenneth. Yes, sir. Brothers are calling the truce there. So it's fitting that the topic of our conversation is peace in the streets. The ripple is spreading, which we have hoped for, and I know everybody is probably asphyxiated or transfixed by the Mueller report that's come out. Everybody's like, man, the Mueller report, the Mueller report. Okay, that's fine and dandy. That's cool, I understand. People want to know. That is news. But the reality, dear brothers and sisters, there are other things that we really need to be focusing on, particularly what's happening among our people, in our community, and what we must do to stem the tide of violence that we see in our community. Yes, sir. And help do what we can to support these brothers that have decided to call these truces, as well as hopefully continue or urge those who are paying attention and those who are not get their attention, that the ripple effect that we are seeing spreads even further and further, that it may reach the rest of the communities that are suffering from this same scourge. But yes, sir, brother, go ahead, man. I want you to, because they missed you yesterday, I'm sure. Oh, they didn't miss me, did they? Man, please, man. Come on now. I missed your presence, brother. I got to be honest. Well, it's kind of nice to have somebody here with you. I miss you too, brother. Yes, sir. 100%. I want to open up in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. And again, greet our listening audience here in Memphis, Tennessee, and also those who are watching us via Facebook Live and also streaming on YouTube, and our universal greetings of peace and paradise. We say in the Arabic language of Assalamu alaikum, which means salam. Peace be unto you. I'm glad to be back today. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. Even though we're having some horrendous weather. Yeah. But we are thankful to the Almighty God for whatever we get on this side. Yes, sir. Again, this topic is so prevalent. As I was listening yesterday and looking at some of the events that's taking place, and I was just saying, yes, this is the right season. You know, for those who are listening, this is probably the most important period of time since man's been on the planet, if you only knew. Yes. And as they always try to do, they try to offer us distractions, a lot of white noise, so to speak. Right. And now we know what the Mueller report says, and we know what it doesn't say. So those who are looking for something didn't find it, and those who feel like their position was justified are celebrating. But again, how does that affect our community directly? You know, and they've already decided what they are going to do and what they're not going to do. And so you reading the report is not going to change your life. But the information that we hope to provide, if it be the will of Allah, to enlighten all of us and to provide us with a forum, Brother Andre, where we can have a lawful dialogue in the right manner, without vitriol, without being abusive, and even if we disagree, not being disagreeable. So this is the S.O.S. Saving Ourselves program, and I want to give a shout out as always, because
I'm sitting in another man's seat, really, with his permission. This seat here should be our student minister, the Mid-South representative,
That's right.
our Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, student minister Anthony Muhammad.
No doubt about it.
But as he can't be in every place all the time.
That's right.
So he sends out some of us as emissaries or ambassadors.
That's correct.
And I'm truly grateful that he allowed me the opportunity to try and represent his work here in the Memphis, Tennessee area and surrounding cities as well. He's been a tireless warrior on the front line of struggle here.
Yes.
Since the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime a man working for his people, that's a hard job.
Yes, sir.
And it's a lot of times you suffer from what you call battle fatigue, I think the term you was sharing with me.
Yes, sir.
But here's a brother that's still leading.
He's still on the battlefield.
I was last time I got to hear from him directly. You could hear it. He was saying, "Man, there's something about this." I think he was on Brother John's show.
Yeah,
he said, "There's something going on with this," and you can see that fire burning. So I know he got something planned big for the Memphis and the surrounding areas. And inshallah, God willing, I want to do everything in my power to help our minister here, student minister Anthony Muhammad.
That's right, brother. Thank you so much for that, brother. And it's nice to know, because see, man, one of the things that we as black people suffer from is we are a thankless people when it comes to those who make the kind of sacrifices. The enemy has taught us and has desired that we never develop any respect.
That's right.
For those who lead. In fact, in the counterintelligence program of J. Edgar Hoover, one of their objectives was to never allow any respectability of black leaders, particularly among the youth.
That's right.
Among their people in general.
Yes, sir.
See, this is why when, they make and select black leaders, when they're finished with them, like you ball up a piece of paper and throw it away, you destroy the paper, that's what they do to black leadership.
Yes, sir.
And they bring to light their shortcomings and flaws,
right,
and put them on Front Street in hopes that all in black America will lose confidence in black leadership. But we don't do that here.
No, sir.
And, brother, you saying that if I may take a minute or two just to share, my experience when I met student minister Anthony Muhammad, it was back in 1992.
Yes, sir.
And I started, coming to the mosque. I had been listening and studying, in fact, the minister, his tapes, since late 1989. And I finally made the decision. I said, man, I'm fixing to go over to this mosque. Well, no, I didn't say it like that. I said, I'm going to buy that newspaper.
Right.
And I was at the corner of Lamar Airways in traffic, and I saw, I never forget, Brother Charles too.
Yes, sir.
Holding final call. And I beckoned him over, and he hustled over and sold me the paper. And I said, brother, where y'all meet? And he told me they were meeting at 577 Hollywood at a church called Golgotha. in a room in the church.
The upper room, brother?
The upper room. But brother, of course, I went there and I laid eyes on Brother Minister Anthony. And my thoughts, I hope you don't mind me sharing this. I'm not going to be too graphic, Brother Minister, if you're listening. But I looked at him, and it was a shine on him that I wasn't used to seeing on black men. I ain't going to say exactly what I thought, but
yeah, right.
But I was looking at him. I hope he didn't catch me staring at him, but I was looking at him like, who this brother? But at any rate, I started coming out to the Sunday meetings, and man, he was preaching on Moses,
yes,
and I was like, I'm like, dang, never heard scriptures, because I come from a family,
that's right,
of clergymen, where I have clergy, my grandfather and my uncle, Hezekiah, and, Hezekiah is the name out of scripture.
Right out of the scripture. Bro.
So, and I had never heard scripture taught and made relevant to us. So needless to say, the point I want to make is this. Every time I saw him, he was working. In short order, man, within a matter of, seemed like weeks, we was moving out of that little place, And we found a place on where we are now, Vance. And we went in, and I mean, he wasn't the kind of brother that, sit back and watch all of the FOI. No, sir, brother. I would walk in the mosque. He's standing on a ladder with a hammer in his hand, nailing in sheetrock.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Putting mud and smoothing the wall. And I was like, okay, now this brother here is working.
Okay.
So, when somebody's in front of you putting in work, it inspires you.
Yes, sir.
Put in work. So,
right.
Brother, we made that into a home, and we moved some things because it used to be an old club called a family affair.
Oh, yeah.
It was getting down, but we was making a place to help black folk get up.
Yes, sir.
And those days, brothers, in '93, we moved over in there. And before we had our first meeting,
yes, sir,
the place wasn't complete. We hadn't even laid the floor yet. But the mosque was packed.
Right.
It was hot. And but my point is, Brother Minister Anthony was working, man. He, and next thing I know, I'm in Friday night study class, and he tells me, brother, I want you to come go with me to the prison.
Yes, sir.
And I go with him there, and next thing I know, he cut me loose.
Wow.
Brother, wasn't much training, He went a couple of times. You're like, okay, brother, you keep going.
Yes, sir.
And my point is, I thank Student Minister Anthony Muhammad for the work and the base that he's laid in the city. And he continues to work. And you are so absolutely right, brother. We are here at his behest, and we are his emissaries. And I am in no way ashamed to say that I'll walk with that brother until I can't walk no more.
Yes,
as he walks with the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. So just wanted to get that out, man. It's been on my mind. I thought it should be said today. So we thank you, Brother Minister. And I don't want to leave out this captain of ours either.
Oh,
Captain. Look, this is his second tour of duty, and I'm not going to get into his. I'm going to let him come on here if he so desires one day and tell you about it. I say, it's one thing to go to war once.
Yeah. And to come back.
Yeah, get injured,
Yes, sir.
We don't have a Walter Reed to patch up them injuries.
No, sir.
And these are not carnal injuries, they're spiritual ones.
Oh, the ones that cut deep.
Cut deep, that stay with you. And then my brother, he comes back, he's on his second tour.
Yes, sir.
Of duty. But I'll let him come and tell his story if he so desires. But let's get to these axioms. It's already 20 minutes after, brother. The first one from the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, he who prescribes the diameter of your knowledge dictates the circumference of your activity. Now remember that, y'all, when we're talking. The second one is a slave, is one whose power and authority is ruled over by another and whose sphere of freedom is limited according to the wishes of his master. And of course, the third one from Carter G. Woodson in his book, Miseducation of the Negro, wherein he writes, when you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him to go here or yonder. He'll find his proper place and he'll stay in it. You do not have to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there's not a back door, he will cut one for his special benefit. His education makes it necessary. So we would ask that you would keep those in mind as we engage in this conversation today. Once again, the call-in numbers, 901-452-3094 or 901-324-7490. And we want to know, Brother Kenneth, at least I want to know.
Yes, sir.
Can we continue the ripple by calling for truces here in the city of Memphis? Can we convene our young people like they've convened and are convening around the country, brother, to begin to ask the brothers, okay, let's not shoot each other when we have beef. Let's see if we can dialogue. What are your thoughts, brother? You think we can make that happen?
Oh, yes, sir. We understand that the impossible has already been destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
So all we have to do is first formulate an idea and then come up with the tactics and strategy. And again, our student minister here and our captain, they coming up with a program, a tangible program, not just lip service, but we're moving out in an organized, detailed manner. One of the things that is necessary is we have to publicize what's going on, because this is not going to make it on CNN MSNBC,
That's right.
CBS, NBC, and those networks. We have to trend it. We have to use the things that's at our disposal, the social media platforms, be it Facebook, Instagram, or whatever else is out there. We have to show that these brothers are coming together, shaking hands, they're tying their colors together and showing a unified front. And those of us who have the knowledge of the time have to give it its proper context. For example, in the land of Egypt, there were the children of Israel.
Absolutely.
And they were sold into bondage. And the family was in disarray. And everyone had their own colors. But there was one son by the name of Joseph. He had a coat of many colors.
Coat of many.
And what we understand is that he was able to bring the family back together after they had, kind of went astray. And so it is when you look at this thing from the context of Scripture. Here's a brother many of us had never even heard of. And through his life being taken prematurely, look at the ripple effect.
Yes, sir.
This brother's name means God is rising. Think over that. God's crushed to the earth shall rise again. See, we understand that man is a fallen God. You see, and understand that the fall of man represents man succumbing to his lower nature. So now he lives in the underworld.
Come on, man.
This just represents him succumbing to his lower self. Each one of us as human beings are a world or a universe in of ourselves.
Yes, sir.
And so when we live according to our lower nature, our lower desires, that id they talk about in psychology, then we're on an animalistic level.
That's
so
right.
You're going to see shooting. You're going to see what they call gang banging. You're going to see carjacking. You're going to see women who don't know the proper use of themselves.
That's right.
But God crushed to the earth, rising at the right time. And so now you're seeing people saying, hey, man, let's stop this foolishness. I don't even know why we're fighting in the first place.
There it is. That's the interesting thing. They realize, wait a minute, what was it we were fighting about?
Yeah.
I forgot. Anyway, let's stop.
And boom. And also, brother, what we have to do, and I'm going to turn it back over to you, we have to be careful because those of us who don't study history, sometimes we're doomed to repeat it. And anytime our people were making headway, coming toward unity, which is a natural desire of ours, there have been those who have been sent among us to disrupt that peace, to disrupt that unity, and to cause us to shed and spill each other's blood all over again. So we got to be on the lookout for any crooked deceiver, because when you get the spirit to come together, so teaches Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, they'll send somebody among you to organize you. You see?
That's right.
So when one come among you, he may look like you, he may have the same lingo or language as you, he may even throw the same sign, but if he's not acting in accord to the time and the agenda that you set out, then you need to check his temperature real closely.
Well, brother, you said something that I think we should really consider and pay attention to. The history of our sojourn here is that whenever we have tried to effectively organize,
yes, sir,
for the legitimate pursuit of unity, of pursuing justice and equity, of controlling the narrative of our sojourn here, the economics and the politics of our communities, wherever we have engaged in that pursuit,
yes, sir,
forces at the highest level of government and law enforcement have actively involved themselves in the activity of subverting all of those organizations, not because they were engaged in anything criminal that would warrant being surveilled,
yes, sir,
but because they did not want unity in those things that I just mentioned among us. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is, well, what's wrong with operational unity, controlling the narrative of being black in America. Economic pursuits for the benefit, organizing to get justice and fair treatment. Yes, those are American ideas. They call it, they say it in this language. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, those pursuits of those black organizations in the 60s were in line with what I just mentioned.
Come on now.
Okay? But they saw, so the question is, why? Why did they stop us from having it? Well, that speaks into who we are and what the rise of black folks in America truly represents in light of Scripture.
Yes, sir.
Because we've looked at our sojourn in America through every lens. We've looked at it through the political lens.
Right.
We've looked at it through the economic lens. We've looked at it from a social angle. We've tried to intellectualize based on the diameter of knowledge and education that they've given us to analyze the problem. And have not been able to address it.
No, sir.
But we have not looked at our problem, at least the masses of us, through the lens of Scripture and prophecy. We have not looked at because we don't see ourselves and what has happened to us being mentioned or foretold of in Scripture.
Yes.
So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, his teaching and his student and representative among us today, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, has made an assessment, has been given an assessment of our condition in light of the Scriptures. And because they operate from that diameter of knowledge, that's why you see the level of success.
Yes, sir. Come on, brother.
As it relates to the reform of our people happening at their hands by God's grace and permission. So today, I say that to say, dear Brother Kenneth and listening audience, and to the brothers and sisters that are working to forge unity and to end the scourge of violence and to bring peace among the quote-unquote desperate street organizations, you better remember COINTELPRO. And you better understand the climate today is the prison industrial complex. Today, they have a vested interest.
Yes, sir.
In crime maintaining at certain levels amongst the most vulnerable in the American society, which is black communities. So for someone to come in and bring peace, I found an article today, brother, where somebody has tied the prison industrial complex to the border issue.
Yes.
They're benefiting from it.
Exactly. And when you're dealing with, they call themselves core civic, but there's a group that profit off of people being incarcerated. Many people are unaware, Brother Andre, that in these contracts, the private prisons, their lobby is one of the strongest lobby next to the Israeli lobby in Washington, D.C.
Yes, sir.
And so they get laws passed. One of the laws that's passed is if that facility, whatever state is in, must be kept at 90% occupancy.
That's right.
Think about it now. Must be kept at 90% occupancy, or the state pays them a fine. So the state is always saying that they don't have money for this and don't have money for that. So to escape from paying this $1 to $2 million fine, they have to make sure they locking enough people up, whether they committing crimes or not. So sometimes, just like it was with the slave codes and the black codes yesterday, oh, what you doing? Oh, you didn't report to your parole officer? Come on back in for 6 months to a year. You changed the address and you didn't let me.
Oh,
you're not working.
Didn't notify me.
You didn't notify me. Well, you got me coming down here every other week. What employer is going to allow me to take off work 2-3 times a month just to say I got to check in with you? So if I lose my job, now you're penalized for that. Oh, it's a game that they're playing, but it's all geared to keeping these facilities at 90% occupancy because they tie the prison population to industry. Many people are unaware that some of the major corporations get goods and services right out of the prison industrial complex. You know, sometimes the customer service rep you're talking to is somebody that's locked up, unbeknownst to the person on the other side of that phone.
Wow. And you know, brother, there's another wrinkle, if you will, that I think should be highlighted, that our people should be warned about. I don't know whether or not the listening audience has heard of this. If you haven't, and it may sound like something out of a movie, but I tell you, it's real. They have now what they call hyper-realistic masks. In fact, a white guy, and let me pull this close where I can see it, because it's on my laptop. Uh-oh. What's this? Oh, okay. I got to put this back on here. Yeah, buddy. But, brother, they have, and there's a version of one available on Amazon. But they got what they call some hyper-realistic latex masks. And a white guy by the name of Conrad, what's that? Zirak. I may be pronouncing it wrong. He was put in jail for robbing several banks wearing one of these masks. I mean, when you look at it, brother, when you see one, it looks real, real, real. And there are several YouTube videos of people donning, white men putting these on. And I thought to myself, why would someone make a mask like that? And furthermore,
how long has it been out there?
How long has it been out there? And why would these white guys want to put on a black face?
Come on now.
Well, we knew why this guy, Mr. Conrad, did. He did it for the purpose of robbing banks and making them think that the culprit was a black guy.
Exactly.
And not him, or a white guy. Can you imagine? I wonder how long, I didn't go deep into how long it took them to capture him.
How many banks did he rob?
And how many did he rob before he was captured? But this stuff is out here, man. And some are of the mind that what's happening in Chicago with all of these shootings, some can't help but wonder, are these suspects actually people wearing these masks because of the descriptions that are given? Most of the masks are masks of middle age, early 40s to middle age black men. This is the kind of madness. Now, for those of you who are listening, you can call it conspiracy all you want, but you can't deny the fact that this man was arrested wearing a hyper-realistic. They say hyper-realistic because when you look at it, it looks so real. If somebody walked past you with one on, you wouldn't do a double take.
Right.
So in an age as technologically advanced as the one that we're in right now, brother, these things have to be contemplated and considered.
Yes, sir.
Because with the history of this country's interfering in the legitimate pursuits of our black organizations who were not involved in any criminal activity, who were just pursuing a right that they said we had. They said we had the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yes, sir.
But clearly, that right did not extend to black people, certainly not in the 60s. But in a covert manner, that same thing applies today. Because once you go outside of those diameters that we always speak about,
that's right, brother,
it is then you are brought face to face with the fact that you are not free in America as a black person. You don't have justice, nor do you have equity, because we see it now with this scheme that some celebrities have gotten caught up in purchasing education.
Yes, sir.
And buying their children's way into these major universities. And those movie stars, two of them that are involved, are going to get what amounts to a smack on the wrist.
Of course.
In comparison to some sisters who just did it at a local level, and they didn't buy their way, they just changed their address or falsified information.
Right.
And one of them is doing 12 years.
Yeah, I read that, brother. 12 years.
Yeah.
Changing the address.
Mm-hmm.
But the one that gave several $1 million,
mm-hmm.
you know, just totally blatant, saying you're an athlete, never even seen the soccer field.
So you're going to get 4 months, probably.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we're highlighting these things to let us understand, brother and sister. Don't you fall for this okie doke. I mean, it's a bitter reality, but it's reality. You know, if you're a person that don't like being real or facing the reality of what's happening, I mean, even with the issue of our churches being burned, you know,
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes, sir. It sounds like you want to address that one, but I can see it in your eyes.
It's just something
I pass the ball to you.
Came across, you know, and if you are unfamiliar, the Church of Notre Dame, you know, made famous with the movie The Hunchback of Notre Dame and all of those things. But, and it's a landmark, century old. And
800 years old.
Yeah, centuries old. But now here's the thing. The outpouring and the donations that are coming from people here in America.
Mm-hmm.
And you got black churches burning weekly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I met a sister recently, and she's active, promoting causes for justice. Mm-hmm. And some Nazi group burned down a building on their compound.
Wow.
No mention, you know, you don't see people digging in their pockets trying to rebuild this church. The one in Hughes, Arkansas, I saw the pastor on the news about a week ago.
Yeah.
The church burned down and it's still burned down, you know, and he's still meeting, but, you know, he needs some help. Nobody went in their pocket. It probably wouldn't have cost them but 1 or 2 of those dinners that these rich donors eat and spend to rebuild that church and get it back up so that a pastor can service his community. But here we are with all this going on right here.
Right in your backyard, America.
And we sending money over there to France. You know,
and they got millions of dollars.
It don't make sense. It's like we have become so insensitive, desensitized, numb to black suffering here in America. We feel everyone's suffering. And I want to be clear. I'm not saying it's wrong to feel, you know, some kind of way about injustice or
their church burning. We're not saying that. It's tragic. It should be rebuilt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But how can you do that? Whatever I do on one side of the equal sign, I do on the other side. That balances out.
Yeah.
You know, you're not feeling that way about something you probably didn't drove by.
Yeah.
Yeah, you saw a news program, you crying tears, and you open up your checkbook, and you know, oh, it's so bad, we got to do something.
Yeah.
And it's going on right here in your own face, and you don't even comment on it.
And you know, brother, they did the churches, the recent burnings.
Yes.
You know, once the point was made that you just made. Yes. Once that observation was pointed out. Now they're giving donations to those churches that just burned a few years ago, which is good. Posthumously, you. Oh yeah. By the way, the blacks, your churches are burned here. So it's disingenuous. That's what I'm getting at.
Yes, sir.
It's a disingenuous gesture because you don't want to look bad. And the irony in it, Brother Kenneth, is this. You know, that's the French, and it was the French.
Come on, brother.
It was Mr. Napoleon Bonaparte,
right,
who was in Africa at the Sphinx.
Think over that.
Who didn't like the quote-unquote Negroid features of the Great Sphinx. So with 21 shots from cannons, he blew the nose off. And that's where in the military you get your 21-gun salute. Right now. So the irony of it was the French. It was a French general.
Come on.
Who defaced the miraculous architecture of our fathers. But now yours, you know, and we're not gloating. We're just pointing out things. Because, see, there's a principle in Scripture that says, if you sow the wind, you shall reap the whirlwind.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
A man reaps what he sows. Obadiah the prophet says, as thou hast done,
so shall it be done
unto you. So, I mean, these things have to be considered, as Brother Kenneth, you pointed out, brother. You know, these are some very important times in which we live.
Yes, sir.
And to the degree that we are not paying attention to the time, and as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says in his 52-part series, the time and what must be done, to that same degree we are vulnerable to being caught up, if you will, due to ignorance, as many are caught up in, this fight, which is really a political cold civil war.
Yes, sir.
Going on between the Democrats and the Republicans. Mm-hmm. And as usual, you see our people girding up and taking sides.
Right.
When neither side has genuinely had the best interest of black people at heart in the first place. So, brother, once again, brothers and sisters, we're discussing this peace in the streets. And I want to hear from you, Brother Kenneth, because you have a unique perspective that I think can be very a meaningful contribution. Not that, of course, you haven't already and always do make a meaningful contribution to the discussion and here at the SOS radio program. But I think your perspective and your experience, brother, lends a unique angle or perspective as it relates to the potentiality of these brothers in the street making peace. What are your thoughts, brother, and how do you see this from your experiences?
Well, I'll put it in the prism of prison. In institutions, for the most part, the street organizations, the quote-unquote gangs, run the facility. They created a job called the gang coordinator, which basically foments confusion and discord by choosing one particular group, whichever one benefiting his position over another. And that creates a problem. But
so the gang coordinator is an actual officer with the institution.
Yes, a created position. And prior to that position, you didn't really have a lot of gang problems. It's not a coincidence that most of your problems came after that. But this is the thing. When there's peace among the street organization, then that facility is more progressive. Mm-hmm. The position of the Nation of Islam in the institution as a stronghold is unquestioned. Probably the most powerful individual would be the quote-unquote minister of the Nation of Islam for several reasons. Mm-hmm. Just like out here, and the youth who belong to street organizations, they, picked on, set upon, they're the problem. So they feel disenfranchised. Mm-hmm. And so since they're being disenfranchised on the one hand, and then within their own structure, there's usually power struggles. Everybody's not eating. That's the term that we use on the street, where you got one person reaping all the benefits, mm-hmm. and the little person doing all the work and taking all the risks. That creates discord. But when you're able to calm that out, and we used conflict resolution before that term became, trendy. The peace you make, the minister over the nation, they bring their issues to him. Mm-hmm. If they got issues with their legal, they say, go ask the minister. And I know people may take offense to that term, but I want to clarify. Minister means servant.
Yes, sir.
And when you representing the Nation of Islam, there's only one human being that's globally known as the minister, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Yes, sir.
So when you hold in that position, especially if he's a righteous brother, mm-hmm. And you can't be holding that position if you're not righteous. Mm-hmm. The people are not going to allow you. Mm-hmm. You see, the people in the street is the one that support the nation inside and outside. Mm-hmm. So when you're able to organize those brothers, you start with the leader. Mm-hmm. Or the one that's looked at what you would call the alpha male, so to speak. Mm-hmm. You get him. He brings everyone else along with him.
Right.
Now, if you're trustworthy, they'll bring their issues to you. And then you're able to sit down and with justice and equity, work it out. that brings the violence down to a minimum. Men gonna always disagree, but it doesn't have to be bloody. It doesn't have to be violent. So when the institution is stable, then you're able to look at the actual running of that institution. Are we getting what we're supposed to have? We need more books. We need this. We need that. All of that stuff is funneled through the Nation of Islam's minister, and then he directs it. For example, we established a mentorship program called Passing the Torch because we recognize that as brothers get older, they get out of prison. Mm-hmm. They get out of prison. Right. But if you don't have anyone to take their place, for example, they removed all the word processors from the institution because guys who was able to write writs of habeas corpus and do legal work is bad for business. Mm-hmm. So in the library, most of the clerks and most of the guys that work on cases are Muslim. Mm-hmm. The Muslim is looked at as a person that's supposed to know everything. Mm-hmm. They see with books. That's just the perception. Whether it's true or not is immaterial. That's the perception. Yes, sir. And so those brothers inside, once you get the violence down, then you're to be progressive. Mm-hmm. And as it is inside, it's out here like the same way. Once there's peace, there's those who have a problem with the peace. Yes, sir. And so they start transferring brothers. They start fomenting, creating things. There's rumors. You have to deal with all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So can we establish that out here? Of course. Mm-hmm. But we have to use a certain methodology. Yes, sir. And the number one thing that I've found, and other brothers will tell you, is the brothers got to trust you. Yeah, buddy. You can't show up on the holidays. You can't show up, like politicians. Yes, sir. When you want something from them. Mm-hmm. I would ask a brother, I said, brother, how many events that they've sponsored have you attended? Because you always want somebody to come to what you throw. Right. Have you went to any of their things? Have you act like what they do matter? Right. You see, and that's why I say we have to meet them where they are. Mm-hmm. And be a good example. If you represent, then represent for them as well. Yes, sir. The minister said this, and this is something that we're taught. Speak for the whole. Mm-hmm. When I was the coordinator, I didn't just speak for the nation. I didn't just speak for the Muslim. Mm-hmm. The little Crip brother knew I rep for him. Mm-hmm. The little GD brother knew I was repping for him. The vice lord or whoever, just a brother in general knew I was repping for them. Mm. And when they know they got a man that's not on his knees, he's not working, he's not an agent provocateur, he's trustworthy, his word is his bond, then whether they are card-carrying Muslims registered in the nation is immaterial. They support the idea of peace. And this is what led to the birth of the peacekeepers inside the institutions, where we established a universal body, sort of United Nations, where every group was represented and the institutional beefs would be brought to the table, and we would try to work them out to the best of our ability. And we had to have an honest broker. Yes. See, someone who's sitting there who can't be bought. Or is not going to choose sides. He's just an honest broker, and he's going to get the evidence that's presented and then weigh on the scale of truth. Yes, sir. And Brother Kenneth, as well as I, in any kind of conflict, the first casualty in the conflict is the truth. And in resolving conflicts, the absolute essential element that must be present is truth. And but brother, from my perspective, I've never been locked up, but I've worked in a jail, and more specifically, as an assistant in the ministry, as a student in the ministry, and functioning as a quote-unquote student minister in the Nation of Islam. Student Minister Anthony Muhammad dispatched me doing prison reform ministry for Mosque 55 in Memphis in late 1993, early 94. I'll take that back, early to mid 94. I started going with him early 94. And around the middle of 94, I was going by myself to the institutions that he was servicing. And one thing I've learned, trustworthiness is absolutely essential. Yes, sir. And being an honest broker. Because the thing about
you hear in the street, keeping it real, keeping it 100. It is something about, people who are quote unquote, as we say, about that life.
Yes, sir.
They can smell, read, detect BS quickly.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's like God is giving them, or experience,
right,
has provided them with an innate ability to recognize hype and when you're not real.
Right, they're streetwise. They live by their wits, and we disrespect them, by underestimating them.
Yeah.
And people, for whatever reason, they think that you did time in prison. That you're on another. It's a different level. You're a second class citizen. So people underestimate you. And that's just the truth of the matter.
Listen.
And again, we have to get over ourselves.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I tell people, life is a journey. Everybody don't take the same road.
Mm-hmm.
But you treat a man according to the way you want to be treated.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And brother, that model that you just presented, which is, I'm glad how you presented it. That model, I should say, is a model, if you will, that's congruent with the conflict resolution model that is already present, that's being put to use, or is in the employ of us in the Nation of Islam, that we have been using to in various cities to resolve conflicts. And I think the melding of the two together, at least the principles that of the one that we have, coupled with the experience and the insight and perspective of those who have used it amongst our people in a concentrated fashion in the institution to bring it on the street, I think, that would give us headway, if you will, 2 or 3 steps ahead of the game in going amongst our young brothers and finding, as you characterize them, quote unquote, the alpha males or the leaders.
Yes, sir.
You see, so you bring the shepherd, the flock coming.
All the time.
Just like in the Bible said, if you smite the shepherd, you scatter the flock. If you embrace the shepherd, the flock will embrace you.
Yes, sir.
So the contrary of that, or the opposite of that principle, is true as well. And I think what has happened is we as a community, as opposed to embracing those brothers and sisters in the street, we have mocked, ridiculed, and tried to be the judge, jury, and in some instances the executioner.
Come on, brother.
Of these young people, and not taking into consideration what has happened to them. And I'll say this, and I'll mention this in passing, brother. I was I won't say specifically. In what I have done professionally, brother, you are in and out of people's houses when you're responding to calls for public services, public police service, and you see a lot of things. And I've been in the homes of our people, brother, and you see how they're living, and you see their circumstance, and they tell you what is happening to them and why they called and all of this, and you get to see a glimpse. And I'm telling you, brother, some of the circumstances that I have seen our young people growing up in, it's a wonder they can even function at all.
Yes.
But they are expected to come to school and function, to be a good student and all of these things, and then they act out at school, but an assessment is never made. Yes. Of what is the real cause of this young person deciding to join a gang, or deciding to bring a gun to school, or deciding this, that, and the other. And in my experience, brother, and Brother John will bear me witness, you learn a lot about a child and about our youth if you would just shut up, quit criticizing them, and give them an opportunity to speak to you, as opposed to us always speaking at, because we really don't speak to them, we speak at them.
Exactly.
Yes, sir. But listen, the conversation is going on here at the S.O.S. radio program. If you have any thoughts, what do you think, brothers, sisters, they out there in the street listening in radio land? I see you all on Facebook. Sister Rosalind is on, and hold on, I see some long comments. I might need to scroll through and read them, because people are talking, man. My brother Dwayne, He says it's been happening. Just mass social media and technology is making us aware of it. I'm thinking he's referring to the surveillance that we've been under. Hollywood and theater. The Boston Tea Party, when they dressed up as Indians. That's what they did. So did. This brother been reading. The theft of our people in mind, body, and soul. So yes, sir. Brother Wakil is on, man. That's
Brother Wakil.
I got some of Brother Wakil's books on my bookshelf. The history of the FOI, in which I'm studying. Got to read. Thank you for tuning in, beloved. But this wave, if you will,
yes, sir,
as we said yesterday, that started on the West Coast. And I'm going to, me personally, brother, I'm going to make an effort to contact brothers and sisters that I know have radio programs. Brothers like Brother Minister Robert,
yes,
Sister Ava, and see if we can, keep this kind of conversation going. That it may ripple across the country. Brothers have started peace on the West Coast. They've started on the West Coast. I'm hearing rumblings in Baltimore that, you see them tying their flags together.
Yes, sir.
And there's an element out here that does not want that. Although they will say in the same, we need to address violence. And we are witnessing for the first time, Brother Kenny.
Yes, sir.
I think in the history, black communities, at least on the West and the East Coast, and other communities, are up in arms over a black man killing another black man. As we said yesterday, the complaint has been, y'all only make noise when a white officer shoot a black man. And that's what they said. Yeah. That's what they said to Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter don't matter to black people. Because y'all just upset when a white officer kill a black man. But when a black man kill a black man, y'all, where y'all at? Where you at, Black Lives Matter? That's what you hear.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Well, okay. Black people have stood up, and we're up in arms over a black man unnecessarily killing another. To the point to where these brothers want to call for peace. So we've hoped and have called to see this kind of response. Now that it is here, should we not foster it? Should we not try to amplify it?
Nurture it. Cultivate it.
Cultivate it? Go ahead, bro.
Because it's going to be difficult to maintain the peace. And this is why what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was teaching on the insert a couple weeks ago. And I implore everyone to go and study that lecture. It's called Message to the Street Organization and the City Leaders in Newark, New Jersey.
Yes, sir.
Because he laid out the plan. He connected the dots with the fall of the Soviet Union. The CIA agents being called back into the United States.
Yes, sir.
Being assigned to the street organization, quote unquote gangs.
That's what
and their assignment was to foment discord. Again, when you look at COINTELPRO, to misdirect, discredit, disrupt and neutralize. You see, so that's the thing that we got to be on the lookout. The neutralization of this righteous virus that's spreading. So we have to be on the lookout. Those of us who have that experience, all of those who are still around, that was from the Panther Party, the Nation of Islam, they had infiltrated all our organizations.
Yes,
now we got to be out front and talk to the young people and give them that practical life experience. Yes, hey, little bro, let me pull your coat to this. Now, when we did this, this is how they came at us, so they can be on the lookout.
Right.
Now, because nations cannot grow during times of war.
That's right.
If you study, those mobster movies, whenever the families were at war, business ceased. So they came to the table and made the peace so they could get back to business. Now, when the peace is established, then the reason why they want to keep discord, because you're going to naturally see and try to improve your economic platform.
Yeah.
Look at what Nip was doing with the Marathon store. Look what he was doing with the Stem Cell Academy. I don't remember the name of it, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
See, he was doing those kind of things right there on Crenshaw, right in that neighborhood.
Right.
Now, once you start putting that down, then all of the immigrant people that come in who are like bloodsuckers
in
the black community.
That's right.
You come all the way from Europe. You come all the way from the Middle East. You don't love the people you serve. That's why you got spoiled milk. You don't love the people you serve. That's why you say you're a Muslim and you're selling pork. You're selling alcohol.
You're selling cigarettes.
Cigarettes. You're messing with our city women and doing all those things.
Selling it too.
And all of that kind of stuff. Because they don't respect the people.
That's right,
They set up shop in our communities and then they take the money back and build theirs.
That's right. And they treat us like a huge mammary gland, brother.
Yeah, but once we start, feeding off our own breasts, now you're gonna start seeing progress. This is where the progress is gonna come, and it won't take but one generation. We keep this going on, and then we start looking at our babies, saying, "Hey, this is our most precious asset."
Yes.
We're gonna allow these little boys and little girls the opportunity to mature and live out their dreams. And you already got the frontline soldiers. You've been trained in warfare. You just been fighting each other.
That's it.
But if you listen to the general,
come on,
and then he point out to you where the real fight is, then you can learn. Because when you're doing business, that's warfare.
That's right.
See, you can start business, but if you don't have no army, pretty soon you won't have no business.
No business.
So now, once we get peace in the street, then there are those among us who qualify to run for those offices.
Yes, sir.
He's going over all of this in that one lecture. I'm telling you, it's only about 75 minutes. But if you listen to this, it's a blueprint of how to take your community back and then build on it to establish a righteous nation.
Yes, sir. And brother, they said to us that there were 3 things in the congressional record, as I understand it. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has mentioned it on several occasions, that they would not teach in the historically black college and university. 3 sciences.
Yes, sir.
And one of those sciences was the science of business.
Yes.
The second, the science of warfare. And third, the science of mating.
Exactly.
Because those are the sciences in conjunction with the science of mathematics that are nation-building sciences, they are nation-nurturing sciences. Because when you understand the science of mating and you produce the generational army that you need,
yes, sir,
like-minded young people,
right,
and you teach them the science of warfare and the science of business, not that you're going to go and prosecute a war against anyone in an unjust manner, but living in a democracy. That's why business is warfare, because you live in a capitalist construct. So hostile takeovers happen
all the time.
So you have to approach business with a military mindset. So, and they said that they would never teach those things to us, but you pointed out the general, brother, and I humbly submit and offer to our people that the general that our young people are already listening to,
come on, brother,
is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Think over that.
Because when you look at the membership, you see young men, you see young women, because the message from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan touches them at the equator of their nature and causes them to incline to the light, like the earth inclines to the light of the sun when they hear the message, because there's light in it.
Goosebumps, man.
Yeah. Well, brother, hey, look, that's from I'm not saying nothing that I thought of myself. Yes. That is from our teacher,
yes,
the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And the thing of it, brothers and sisters, if there was a genuine desire to see the end to gang conflict, those who say and complain about it, if you were genuine in your desire to end the gunfire and the conflict happening in our communities, we would rush to the banner of these young brothers and sisters that are calling these truces. And to the degree that there is an unwillingness and a mockery, and you want to speak bad of it, to that same degree, you are not genuine and you were never sincere about ending it in the first place. That's me talking. Because if you really want, in the hoods throughout Memphis, let's just deal with Memphis. Smoky City, Klondike,
yes,
Raleigh and Frazier, all of the areas, Orange Mound, where we see these kinds of things happening. In the high schools, if it was a genuine concern by those who run their mouth about it to end it, then you would come to the table and be a stakeholder in helping to end the scourge of violence that's happening and taking the lives of our young people. But, we'll see, brother. And we're going to remain prayerful and remain vigilant. I implore our young people. See, those of you that are on social media, you got these beefs. If you're listening, young brother and sister, they got a wicked plan for you, and that's just the truth of it. Because when you got private prisons for profit, I don't know how many different ways to say it. And brother, I have on tap here, there was a letter written or sent to a newspaper around April of 2012, and the title of it, "The Meeting That Changed Rap Music and Destroyed a Generation." Yes, some say it's fictitious, some say it's a conspiracy theory, and people say, I don't believe in conspiracy theories. And I ask them, do you believe in the Bible?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, brother. Give it to them.
And invariably they'll say yes. And then I'll go straight to where Pharaoh said, come to his people. Let us deal wisely with them. Let us kill the male and spare the female.
Right.
And I would ask them, is that a conspiracy?
Us, two or more, engaged in a criminal enterprise.
That's a conspiracy.
That's the definition of conspiracy.
So how can you say you believe in the Bible and not believe in conspiracies? When Pharaoh entered into one against the children of Israel, that's conspiracy written all over, textbook definition. Call in numbers are 901-452-3094 or 901-324-7490. Do you think that we can begin here in the city of Memphis to go amongst our young people and get a truce started with whatever street organization? Doesn't matter. Don't have to be just Crips and Bloods, because there's a lot of different factions and offshoots.
Every city, because this is how it is. They're what they call neighborhood cliques.
Yes, sir.
And they identify, and it just might be, like you say, an offshoot. And then when they get to the penal facility, they have to identify with the big group,
the mother.
Yeah, because the neighborhood thing is not recognized.
Right.
So this is where some of the problems come in.
Yes,
but I was thinking, I don't know what the city budget is. That's above my pay grade. But I'm going to look into it, and this is the reason why. We'll find out how many community centers are in these neighborhoods. When I grew up, there was a community center in every neighborhood.
Yeah.
See, that could be our operating point, our beachhead.
That could be a base of operations.
Now, let's just say it's 25 in Memphis. You put $1 million, $2 million. That's $50 million. Your budget got to be $300, $400, $500 million at least for a city the size of Memphis. You're investing in that community. Now you got programs. When I was coming up, when we was coming up, in the summertime, we couldn't wait for school to get out, because a week later there was some camp.
Something popping at the community center.
It's gonna be some camp.
Free lunch.
Yeah, you're gonna eat 2 meals there.
Yeah,
for sure. They're gonna make sure you can get by. They're gonna take you somewhere you've never been. Growing up in the city, taking a field trip to the country.
Yeah.
Wow. I told somebody, I said, man, I seen a horse live up in person maybe one time. We went on a field trip.
Yeah.
We would go to apple orchards, cherry orchards, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And man, just to engage young people, get them about the hood. And it worked wonders.
Yes.
You have the art and culture program.
Right.
Some of the things these young people are able to do, I've seen a person sit there and braid hair. And I was like, man, that's talent, to sit there and be able to make designs with a person's hair. I see young girls, they do their nails, you can think what you want to think, but that's art. So if they can do that with something small like a fingernail, what if they had the opportunity, had different canvases? There's a whole lot our young people can do if they had the proper guidance and support. That's all I'm saying.
The thing. Those are the key things. Brother Kenneth, we had a couple of excerpts when we were on the subject of the plague of death.
Yes.
And it was a couple of excerpts, and I think they're relevant once again. And I want to play them both for this edition of the program. This is Thursday, and we won't be back till next week. because last time we didn't play them in their entirety.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to start the first one. The first one is 15 minutes long, and then the second one is 5 minutes long. So we got a total of 20 minutes of an audio clip that we want you to hear from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And the first one is, the minister is addressing the Chicago gangs. And to our listeners out there, if you got young people, gather them around the radio, your smartphone, or whatever. And I want them to hear the minister's words to the quote-unquote gangs of Chicago. Because, Brother Kenneth, there are those who like to say, well, all that violence in Chicago, Nation of Islam ain't doing nothing.
No budget, though.
Yeah,
the police not doing nothing. They get billions of dollars. You ain't said one word right there.
So they want us to do broke what the police can't do with $1 billion budget. Yeah, see, okay, you're right, okay. But brothers and sisters, listening audience, gather your young people around and take a listen to the words of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to the quote-unquote Chicago gangs. And we'll be back, and then we'll play the second one, which is 5 minutes long.
Jails in America are being privatized, and they are on the stock exchange. And you don't build a hotel unless you expect occupancy. So when they're building prisons, they want to build them, but they're building them for you. But now they've got to create a culture in the community that lends to violence, crime, drugs, guns, prostitution, and it's a steady pipeline to prison. But in front of me are some of the real movers and shakers in the streets of Chicago. But they're offering you rap deals and Lent records. See, these are the real Satans. They have to be exposed, brothers. You rap, and in your rap there's a beef with another rapper. And you get real, fiery about it. And you're talking about drilling down. You want to kill your brother. So that's the kind of rap you're doing. And then the radio stations are complicit. Because if you make something clean, they don't want to play it. So when you come to the record executives with something clean, but it's got a good beat, hey, that's nice, but see, if you ain't keeping it real. And keeping it real means keeping it as it is so that it will never change. So when I'm rapping and I got a beef with you, you come back with your record and beef with me. But underneath, we all talking about shooting. We're all talking about, is it Molly? So now my rap is being played. And the beefs from the rap, because many of the rap artists are street organization leaders. So then I got a gun. Where did I get it? You know it ain't legal. I gotta make some money. I'm slinging drugs. Young black girls are being turned into prostitutes to satisfy a pimping craze. And what you don't realize is Chicago has been set up now to be the center of what you're just witnessing in Missouri. Now hear me, because I'm finished. So every day there's some killing. Senator Kirk, Senator Durbin. We're going to raise millions of dollars from Congress because we got to go to Chicago and we're going to arrest 18,000 gangster disciples. They already got the prisons and the concentration camps ready. Listen to me. The former police chief in Chicago that was an FBI officer, Jody Weiss, he and the black officers came to have lunch with me at the National House. And the black officers were talking to me about good community police relations. And it sounded real good, and certainly as a man that wants to see our people safe, I said, that sounds good. But then I said, this train is running on 2 tracks. But the other track you didn't say nothing about. Now I want to talk about that track. I said, Mr. Weiss, I read that you ordered 17,000 automatic rifles with hollow point bullets, armor-piercing bullets for your police. Did I make a mistake? Did I read something incorrectly? No. I said, well, tell me, what are you expecting? That you would arm your police like that? And I said, you know, Superintendent or Chief, I said, I also read that most of the police departments in the major cities are being trained by Blackwater, which is a mercenary group that they use in Iraq, and they're training police. Did you hear me? Now, all the police forces are being given weapons that are only used in theaters of war. So when you see the police armed like they are, that's not to serve and protect. That is to kill. Now, I don't know whether you have that picture upstairs of the group that the military force that came against the people in Missouri. Could you show it? When I saw that come up, I looked in the faces of those police, and you could see the hate in their eyes. And one of them was standing there saying, bring it on. They have a desire to kill us wholesale. Now, Chicago is going to be the epicenter of what they're about to do. You know why? Because I'm here. Reverend Jackson is here. Black consciousness is here. They really want to kill Farrakhan. I'm saying this to the government, you know, I'm not running from you. I'm here to die. But what will happen to you? I'm not no Rudy Poop fella that's just out here running his mouth. I'm backed by a power that can destroy you in the twinkling of an eye. Now, I read this morning that the FBI is planning to come into Chicago. And they're already here. But they're increasing their numbers, working with the police, tactical forces, and they want to work in the hood with gangs. Well, what is it all about? See? Now look at the money that's being given to rappers to continue the drill kind of rap. This is the hardest core rap that there is. It's killing, 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 drugs, guns, hoes, disrespect of our women. And because they give you money and contracts that will allow you to put gold in your teeth and bling bling around your neck, and then you can come back in the hood riding expensive cars. But your brothers and sisters are dying on your words. And you are aiding in the conspiracy to exterminate the black male. You got to know that at the highest levels of government, they've plotted our demise. And to come into Chicago with heavy armament to make Chicago the example of slaughter. And perhaps during that time, you know, maybe go after arrest Farrakhan and the Muslims and shut this thing down. Because we're the only man standing now. They've compromised everybody else. But I want to tell you, we're not going to run from this. Because if you plan the slaughter of black people in America, starting with a slaughter in Chicago, let me tell you what you can expect. Now I see that you know that I've been telling you about this weather. And Allah answers real quick. But it's getting worse now. Because you're getting worse in your plans. There's a movie out called Into the Storm. You ought to check it out. Because one of the things they said, well, one of these powerful tornadoes has not hit Chicago or LA. Well, let me tell you, baby, it's on the way. And if you, my brothers, don't change, don't stop the killing of each other, then the wrath of God will descend and blood will be seen in the gutters of Chicago. But But it'll be your blood, our blood. But then God will answer swiftly. You are the people of God, but you're acting like agents of the devil. And that has to stop. Now, in our audience today of BDs and GDs and Stones and Four Corner Hustlers and Vice Lords, all of that is here. And I thank you for coming. Wait. And I said to our staff yesterday, this is the greatest audience that I will have ever spoken to, because it is these young people that are the hope, but they're in the crosshairs of destruction.
Well, that's the first installment, Brother Kenneth, and listening on, yeah, very, very powerful, man. And I'm looking at, as that was playing, I was looking at this this anonymous letter that was given to a news outlet. The person wanted to remain anonymous, and if you read the contents, but it was on a Tuesday, April 24th of 2012. But I want to play the second one. I don't want to waste no time getting into it, because afterwards I want to discuss it. This one is about 5 minutes long. This is the first one. You notice the minister's giving guidance. He's giving warning. Yes. You know, he's pointing out to the young people the mines and the minefield of what's going on as it relates to the intentional setup for the mass incarceration of young black men. And they are unwitting dupes, you know, as it relates to this. But here's the second part, or the second audio clip, and we'll be right back to discuss it further after this.
Now, I want to talk to my gangbanger family. You make it very difficult for me. Go ahead, say that. In the 60s, we knew who the enemy was. But in 2007, you're the enemy. It's black people killing black people. Black people robbing black people. Black people raping black people. I'm talking to you. You gangbangers know the principle of retaliation. But you are retaliating on the chiefest of principles. You're not retaliating because of oppression, injustice. You're retaliating because you don't like the color that your brother is wearing. You don't like the gang that he's a part of. You don't like the area of the city that he comes from. And he may be encroaching upon your drug market, so you retaliate. We are not talking about that. And I cannot call for retaliation in matters of the slain when you have become the number one slayers of yourself and your own people. The 60s were different. 50 years later, the context is different. God is retaliating in his own way. But this murder that is going on in our own community makes it difficult for me to make the right and necessary call for your justice. Listen. On any given Saturday night in cities across this nation, it's we killing each other. You make it easy for racist police to kill you because you are busy killing yourself. But if you stopped and became a community that respects the life of each other and will protect the life of each other and will protect your women and your girls. And if an enemy of that peace comes in among us, how can I do what is right by you while I watch what you are doing wrong by one another? Half of all murder victims in America are black men. And 9 out of 10 of those that are murdered by their own brother or sister. But I warn the government that at a certain time, if you don't do justice by us, God will retaliate in a way that he has never retaliated on any nation that has existed in the past. If you go and read your scriptures and see the plagues that God brought in the days of Noah, in the days of Lot, to the people of Ad and Thamud, to the people of Saleh, to the people of Moses, to the Roman Empire, to the Babylonian city, all that God has brought on them, he will bring on America. As it is written in the scripture, he will bring the blood of the righteous from Abel to Zechariah, even to this very day, on one generation.
There you have it, Brother Kenneth. Powerful, man. Powerful. And hey, if you got any comments about what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, once again, the call-in numbers are 901-452-3094 or 901-324-7490. You know, Brother Kenneth, I pulled up the anonymous letter that was sent.
Yes, sir.
And some things I want to point out about it and compare it to the evolutionary development of hip-hop music. Now, according to this anonymous person, they were a mover and a shaker in hip-hop. He says between the late 80s and early 90s, he said he was what you may call a decision maker with one of the established record labels in the music industry. He said he was invited to attend a closed-door meeting with a small group. This was in early 1991. Small group of music business insiders to discuss rap music's new direction. Now, before I go any further, now, there's those who like to say, well, man, it can be easily debunked. Well, we in the Nation of Islam and scientists, they understand the law of cause and effect.
Yes, sir.
If the effect is real, measurable, tangible, then the cause is real.
Exactly.
And if the effect, has the kind of symmetry where the cause came from a well-organized effort, if you will, then it's not just happenstance.
No, sir.
It's not just something that just came about. No, there was a force behind that was effectively organized to produce a certain effect. So if you studied the effect, that'll give you the level of intelligence that was the cause of the effect.
Again, let's deal wisely.
Wisely. It wasn't some happenstance slopped together pursuit here. These were business people who had well thought out plan for this. But let me continue. He says the meeting was held in a private residence on the outskirts of LA. He said he remembered it was about 25 to 30 people there. And most of them, according to this person, was familiar faces. And he said that they were interrupted when they were all asked to sign confidentiality agreements, preventing them from publicly discussing the information presented during that meeting. They said this person said the agreement was just one page long, very clear on the matter and the consequences, according to which stated that if they violated the terms, it would result in job termination. Okay. Further down, it says the companies that they worked for had heavily invested in the private prison industry.
Wow.
And he said that one of their representatives explained to them that the companies that they were working for had invested millions into building privately owned prisons, and that their positions of influence in the music industry would actually impact the profitability of those investments. And of course, he said at this time they were puzzled. How in the world does what we do, music, have any impact on the profitability of the people we're working for owning a private prison?
Yes, sir.
So it was explained to them. They were told since their employers had become silent investors in the prison business, it was now their interest to make sure that these prisons remained filled. Now, today you have contracts with prisons.
Contracts.
States have them. Where, as you said earlier, brother, they have to ensure these prisons that their beds or their institutions will remain 90% capacity at all times. Otherwise, the state will pay the shortfall.
That's facts.
Okay. Now, he said it was in the interest to ensure that, the prisons remain full. He said their jobs would be to help make this happen by making music or marketing music, which promotes criminal behavior, rap being the music of choice. They were assured that this would be a great situation for them because rap music was becoming an increasingly profitable market for those companies that they work for. And as an employee, they would be able to buy personal stock in the company. And this person said they asked a friend, the friend that invited them, was they involved in anything corrupt or something? He said he asked him, why was he involved in something this corrupt? He said that person replied that it was bigger than the music business. And it was nothing that they would want to challenge without risking consequences. So that was a veiled threat. And whereas according to this letter now, he continues, I go further, and he said he considered speaking out publicly at the risk of losing his job, but he realized that he'd probably be jeopardizing more than just his job. Once he thought about it, this is after he leaves the meeting is over. He said a scuffle broke out at the meeting and guns were pulled by some of the people who accompanied these big business people. So I guess it was their own security force.
Yes, sir.
But he said the months passed, rap music had definitely changed direction. He said he was never really a fan of rap music, but even he could tell the difference. He said rap acts that talked about politics or harmless fun were quickly fading away as gangster rap started dominating the airwaves. Violence and drug use became a central theme in most rap music. Now, let's pause a second. I remember in high school, brother, the most violent rap that I ever heard came from the Sugar Hill Gang.
Yes, sir.
And the hip hop, hippie to the hip hoppy, you don't stop a rocking to the bang bang. That's what we heard.
Right.
To the rhythm of the boogie to beat.
Yes, sir.
What you hear is not a test. I'm rapping. It was harmless fun.
Yes, and then they got more socially conscious because Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, the message, even today, that song, it's like a jungle sometimes. It made me wonder how I keep from going under. And he was dealing with social ills. Yeah. In line with what Marvin Gaye was doing on the What's Going On album, Curtis Mayfield, they were putting that our condition in music, and this is why the cultural revolution is so powerful. And like you say, all of a sudden, and now you look at the uptick in private prisons, the uptick in the laws that were passed that was funneling people to prison for an enormous amount of time, and the music, you went from self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. KRS-One is on the East Coast, and UNITY, Unity by Queen Latifah. Look what she was calling herself, Queen Latifah. Yeah. You see? We all in the same gang. All of those things was coming out. Then it just like a light switch. It just switched.
It switched, brother. And before you know it, Yeah, I remember. I think NWA. You know, N words with attitude.
Right.
You know,
on the radio.
On the radio.
First time I heard, I was like, what?
Yeah. And then in the early '90s, you know, you had some female rappers. It wasn't Queen Latifah no more. It wasn't
the
Supersonic. What was that group that had Supersonic? What was the name of that?
JJ Fad.
JJ Fad. You know, they had harmless names.
Right.
But in the early '90s, brother, it's a couple of female rap groups who had the name B's with problems. Yeah. B words with problems.
Yes.
And H words with an attitude. That was the name of the group.
HWA. I remember that.
So when you see that effect, it's congruent with the cause. Because who promoted them?
Somebody had to get them air,
Who gave
radio play?
Yeah.
The payola game still was in effect. So who was funding that?
Who was funding it?
You know, you look at the West Coast, and I'm going to tell you how they market this. Now, I grew up in Michigan. You was here in Memphis. Most of us, we barely getting out of the neighborhood. But now you're seeing Raiders hats. Mm-hmm. You're seeing Chuck Taylor's khakis. All of the culture of the rap game. Then, Hollywood make a movie called Colors with Robert Duvall, Sean Penn, major actors in it, promoting the gang culture. South Central, Menace to Society.
Boys in the Hood.
All of those things start coming simultaneously. Again, the cause. It had to be real because the effect was real. You got Spice One. The trigger got no heart. You see? You know? Then you start going in the South, with the Ghetto Boys and all of those things, and they were moving. Even in Memphis, you had Big 8 Ball, MJG, all of that.
I mean, they were our brothers.
Yeah.
And the thing of it is, brother, in one of our study guides 17, he asked the question, can you be part of a conspiracy and not know it?
Yes.
And the word mocker is used, which means to skillfully maneuver something or someone into a position that you would desire for them and they not know they're being, moved.
Yes, sir.
And that is the skill with which our brothers and sisters from the hood who had aspirations of stardom, and don't misunderstand, we're not blaming those groups. No. Because what reputable record label would give a record deal to a group of women who would bear those names as their group? Who are they marketing that to?
Yes.
They're marketing it and targeting it to a specific group that can identify with it, and they're popularizing it, hoping that they will, live it out.
And that's how what it says, life imitates art and vice versa. Because when we was small, if you went and watched Bruce Lee, you go outside, everybody's kung fu
Everybody's doing kung fu.
Yeah. When Rocky came out, next thing you know, there's an uptick and people want to learn how to box. We emulate what we see on television.
Yeah.
And so now you got the Grand Theft Auto games, all these games that you're sitting there playing hours and hours at a time, where the object is to create mayhem, destruction, murder, and that's how you score. But they don't show you the next thing of going to court, getting sentenced to life, living in a box, all those things. They don't show that. So now you become desensitized to those kind of things. And this is why you mentioned that you had an 11-year-old, committing those kind of offenses. What have he saw? We had the sisters here, and I want to say, I think it was Sister Tamiko Muhammad, and she was talking about the things that our young people take in their sensory perception is above their ability to handle it. And I was just like amazed, because you think about the things they have access to just with a smartphone and with direct TV. There's, there used to be a certain time of night when certain things would come on. You can get that all day long.
All day long, brother.
And they don't understand when they watching some of the stuff they seeing, they can't process that information.
No. And they can get it on YouTube, brother. And believe it or not, brother, in high schools and middle schools throughout America,
yes,
there are computers and internet access. And these children are so tech savvy. They know how to get around firewalls.
Oh, yeah.
To watch and listen to content that the firewall of the computer system of the school, the high school, or middle school is supposed to be designed to keep away from them. I've seen them do it, brother.
You witnessed it.
I'm like, because they can get, in most high schools, there are some YouTube pages and Facebook. You're not supposed to be able to get onto those sites.
Yes, sir.
But students, these children are so tech savvy, man. They know how to circumvent it and get on.
Mm.
You know, and they spend their time when they're supposed to be paying attention in class. They're watching something on Facebook or YouTube that they shouldn't have been able to get to. So the point is, the things that our children are exposed to is something that we're not considering as one of the variables that's giving rise to this. So if we want to begin to make some headway, you know, yes, we can make peace, we can declare peace, but like you said a few minutes ago, brother, maintaining the peace, maintaining it is going to be and maintaining peace is going to involve dealing with these kinds. We're going to have to address the culture that's driving these mentalities, because now the issue is mumble rap. See, there was a time when, you know, hip hop artists had something of value to say.
Yes.
There was a message in the music, you know. But now, brother, it's talking about nothing. It's glorifying material possessions.
Yes.
And the ability to pimp, the ability to abuse and misuse women, you know. And that's what, you know, that's what the message is in the culture today that's being fed, you know, to our children. It reminds me of a scriptural reference as the people are now, they're husking corn and feeding swine.
Yes.
Meaning they're using their talents and their gifts to feed the swine-like appetite for filth of the masses of the people. You know? So the question is, well, what are we going to do about it? Now that there are those on the East Coast and the West Coast who are desirous of ending the scourge, man. Are we going to get into the fray?
We have to. We have to be proactive rather than being reactive. And we have to strategize and be willing to use new tactics. You know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
Yes.
We're going to have to reach out to one another. This is a time for us to reach across the table. And we can't discount any segment. And I say that because sitting inside the penal institution, I'm just speaking from my personal experience, are some of the brightest minds that you want to meet.
Yes.
You know, dealing with conditions and circumstances, you know, and choices have led these individuals to be where they are. But that does not discount their humanity.
Right.
Many I've sat with, and they have assisted me in organizing things, even while I'm out here, as far as getting people together and getting them to attend certain events.
Yes, sir.
You know, they've assisted monetarily when some out here wouldn't give a dime.
Man,
this is real.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have to do, because many of the leaders are incarcerated, we got to reach inside and forming a committee, an alliance, and let them understand, hey, you know, this is the time now. Use your voice, use your position, use your influence, and to guide those who follow your leadership and help them understand now is the time to carry out. Because when you look at the founding fathers of the organization, they all come about of the struggle. You look at their bylaws or what they call their literature. All of it's community based. We just got away from it because, you know, you have to understand. I mean, are you going to be a freedom fighter? Are you going to be a drug dealer? You know, because the thing about it was when you, even with those documentaries that they exploit, like Gangland, they show you that many of the organizations started out at community based. They were getting funding funding. Now, Illinois, most of them based out of Chicago, some of the heavy outfits.
Yes, sir.
And they were doing things. They highlighted the conservative vice lords at one time.
Yes,
you don't
sir.
understand, the origin. You had the Black Peace Stone Rangers. You had all those,
Yes.
heavy organizations.
Yes, sir.
The GD, which was Gangster Disciple, which is now growth and development. They don't highlight the
They make mockery of it.
Exactly.
And they accuse them of using it as a ruse
cover
to engage in criminal activity.
And the minister, I don't know anyone of that stature who would reach out to a brother like Larry Hoover, who would reach out to Jeff Ford, Chief Malik, who had reached out to Stanley Tookie Williams and many others. I just named those because those were publicized,
Right.
And would go in there. And many don't know that Tookie Williams was writing children's books.
He was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes, sir. So, and then all of a sudden you want to rush to execute him, and then right after his death you put a moratorium on execution. Because what if these people who are following them in the streets, by the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, could really hear the message of a man's mind that has evolved over time. Even though he's sitting in a jail cell, his mind is free enough and is evolving. Now he's trying to get his word out.
And Brother Kenneth, I think, brother, it just came to my mind that a representative of Stan Tookie Williams recorded his words and played them at the Million Man March in 1995.
Wow.
She had a recorder, and she held it to the microphone, and it was the voice of brother. And the thing of it, brother, I want to, brother, one of our programs, we may do it next week, go over the history, because Brother Derek and I, we have a PowerPoint presentation that we share with the youth in the community when I was with the COP unit about the history of gangs, how they came to be and why they were formed. And I think if the public were better informed on the roots of this and why they were formed, then that'll help. Because see, whenever there's a sickness, a doctor has to eradicate that sickness by finding out what was the cause.
Yes.
I think that's called doing a pathology. They take a pathological approach to what's ailing you by trying to find out what sickness is running your family.
Right.
But yeah, I just wanted to say that, brother. We got about, Brother Kenneth, it's 6 minutes till, so we got about 2. Brother, you got some parting thoughts that you want to give to the audience before we go?
Brother, I want to thank you for the opportunity. Like you say, time flies, but we're trying to get this information out. But I will appeal to those inside the penal institution, those who have supported our agenda, who supported myself and others, to let's take what we're witnessing out here and spread it in there.
Yes, sir.
Let's stop these fratricidal acts, the internal civil wars that's going on. Let's generate the peace amongst ourselves and then present a united front to better our condition.
Yes, sir.
And we have to do that. And when you all do that on the inside, then it's going to be magnified on the outside, because you are the brothers that make a difference.
That's right. And I would say also, brother, a word of warning. See, when those kinds of steps are made on the inside, and as well as our brother Kenneth, they take steps to isolate those voices, and sometimes they'll put them in ADSEG, they'll put them in the SHU, and put them in solitary confinement. They'll find a reason to do it. Am I right?
Yes, sir. This is true.
That's another thing to look out for. But brothers, stay prayerful. Community, stay prayerful. And with the help of Almighty God and faith, we can begin to tackle what appears to be a mountain, as the scripture says. You can say, if you had the faith, the grain of a mustard seed, you can say to the mountain, be removed. And it would be so. So, and I know crime and violence amongst our young people and the gang conflict in our communities look like a mountain. But all we need is just a little bit of faith. Just a little. Side of the grain. If you ever go and find a mustard seed one. You ever seen a mustard seed, Brother Kenneth?
Yes. Brother Captain Anthony J. had one.
He gave me one too, brother.
Yes, sir.
And he dropped that thing in my hand, brother, and that was really the first time I had actually seen a mustard seed.
I as well.
I heard people talk about it, how small it is.
Wow.
But in your hand, brother, you can barely find it. It's so small, but it produces one of the biggest trees.
Exactly.
That's the thing of it. So the analogy in Scripture is very, very. I can't even think of the word that I want, but it speaks to what we're saying. So, brother, we got 3 minutes left. We got to shut it down. We would ask the audience and invite the audience to subscribe to the Final Call newspaper. Please subscribe to the Final Call. If you want to deliver it at home, give us a call at 901-286-5034. Come and visit us at Mosque number 55, located at 873 Vance Avenue. We meet Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. The doors open at 9. Student Minister Anthony Muhammad, the Mid-South representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, is a student minister. And this Sunday, we got a treat. The international representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, it will be in the city, Abdul Akbar Muhammad, who has traveled with the Honorable Louis Farrakhan around the world. You want to come and hear what he has to say? Man, he's like a dictionary. So please come and join us this Sunday. Doors open at 9. The program begins promptly at 10. I would advise you to get there early because the seating is limited. We'll be back there Monday night at 7:30 p.m. for our men's only class, the FOI processing class at 7:30 for men only. That's Monday night. We're there again on Wednesday night for our midweek lecture and study class. Women and men are invited Wednesday night at 7:30. And we're there again Friday night at 7:30 for the self-improvement study class. Both men and women are invited to that class Friday night at 7:30. And of course, we have the women's class Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. for women only, all taking place at 873 Vance Avenue here in the city of Memphis. Call our conflict resolution hotline. We're trying to work it, you all, that we may resolve the beefs in our communities that are going on, that there won't be a loss of life on one hand and the lifetime incarceration of another on the other hand. Give us a call at that number. That's 901-303-8961. If you're not in the immediate Memphis area, a little south of us in North Mississippi, visit our satellite location, the South Haven Study Group, located at 1495 Brookhaven in South Haven, Mississippi. They meet Sunday mornings at 10 a.m., Wednesday evenings at 7:30, and Friday evenings at 7:30. You can also catch us on Comcast Channel 17, Mondays at 5:30 p.m. for the Self-Improvement Talk Show, hosted by Student Minister James Muhammad. You can catch us again Thursdays at 4 p.m. for the Final Call Hour, and again on Saturdays at 11 a.m. for New Woman, New Nation. If you want or have any questions, comments, or if you want to advertise with the SOS radio program, give us an email at savingourselves19@yahoo.com. Brother Kenneth, that's going to do it for us today, brother. Glad to have you back. God willing, we'll be back again, or I say black again, next week on the same station at the same time. But until then, we leave you as we came before you with the greeting words of peace of Assalamu Alaikum.
Everybody join in this melody. That's the only way we're gonna be.
Eastern time. And as always, check out the podcast. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, SBNationRadio.com. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for tuning in.
I'm talking to you, Muslim, Christian, and the Hebrew. There's a thing to do. We got to unite, or else we are through.
The second level. That's the beauty of the Golden State Warriors. Not even LeBron James is